Okay. So ready to move on the next painful topic, which is called quadratic velocity vector. Remember, there were three components in acceleration. Two that are linearly related to accelerations and one that is quadratically related to velocities. Then there must be inertia properties that is quadratically related to velocities. That's the one that is called quadratic velocity vector. And by the way, before we enter into that topic, I'm sure there's a lot of question marks. Okay, how is going to be the exam, and what is the material that you need to know when you step into exam? When you do the exam, you don't step into exam because it's online exam. The next lecture that will be on Monday will be devoted mostly to recap, to summarize the information that I'm expecting you to know when you're getting the exam. And I want to make your life enjoyable, because not all of you want to score high from this course. You may be comfortable with the number, say, 3 out of 5, which is fine, and I want to help you. And the way that I'm going to help you is that I will make a list of every single item that I'm expecting you to know in written exam, and they are rated. They are rated with different stars. So if there's a lot of stars, say 5 stars, meaning that absolutely you have to know this topic. But if there's 2 stars, 1 star, fine, skip it. If you are busy, if you don't have much time to prepare yourself to written exam, skip the topics that are not rated high. It means that there may be a question or two related to these not highly related topics, but that's fine, because you will lose few points, but that's fine. You're gonna still score, say, 3 or something. That's fine. But if you're really aiming to get 5 out of 5 in this course, then you have to master every single topic. Up to you. But the next lecture that will be on Monday will be mostly devoted to this summary, recap. Okay, and maybe a little bit of something about the equation of motion. So we have to make an example how we can solve the system based on augmented formulation. So that's something that I will explain next week. I will get started on that today, right after this quadratic velocity vector. But without further ado, let's summarize what we did in a previous lecture before the break. So we looked at generalized inertia forces. And generalized inertia forces consist of 2 parts. One that is linearly related to acceleration, this part here, and then another part that is quadratically related to angular velocities. Now we already looked at the first part, this one here. Now what we're going to do next is that we will take a look at this quadratic velocity vector. And this is a cousin of mass matrix, in the sense that, remember, if there is a body reference coordinate system located in the center of the mass, then the mass matrix will be diagonal representation. Here, if your mass matrix is diagonal, meaning that the body reference coordinate system is located in the center of the mass, then the quadratic velocity vector will be equal to 0. So it's not necessarily a component that you need to care about. So it depends on your configuration. Okay, so let's look how is that we can compute the quadratic velocity vector. Again, a little bit of painful mathematics. So this is how the quadratic velocity vector part look like. So there is this mapping part, and then what is coming from the acceleration. This guy too came from the acceleration. And now when I do the mathematical operation, this one here, you can verify that will be equal to 0. This is, I'm going to not show the details, how can I define that to be equal to 0, but the details are shown in lecture note. So take a look at the lecture notes, and from the lecture notes you can conclude that this one here will be equal to 0. What is left is the components that are associated to Rx and Ry. And these components are again quadratically related to angular velocity. You don't need to memorize the details, like how the equation look like, because you can go and check it out the details from the lecture note. But what this means, what is a physical interpretation of quadratic velocity vector, that I will show in this slide. You know, when you do the math, eventually the quadratic velocity vector reads as it is shown here. So this component is associated to Rx, this component is associated to Ry, and the final one, which is equal to 0, is associated to angle theta. Now, in order to understand the true nature of quadratic velocity vector, we have to take a look at the example. An example is the one that is shown here in this slide. So I have here beam-like body. The beam-like body is constructed in such a way that the center of the mass is located here where the red dot is located. Now, when you're rotating your body, you have to observe the things from the body reference coordinate system. Now, when you introduce the rotation, there will be a force that is trying to kind of rip it off the body, this beam-like body, and introduce the forces in in Rx and Ry directions, like shown here. And these are depending on the angular velocity. So that's what the quadratic velocity vector is about. So it's a force, kind of like inertial force, due to this phenomenon. So if you then go and move your body reference coordinate system in the center of the mass and you rotate the body, how much the body reference coordinate system experience the forces because of the rotation? 0. There is no forces. That's why the quadratic velocity vector in this scenario is equal to 0. Okay. A little bit of complicated matter, but we're going to practice all this a few times. I promise you that. Okay. Now, my second in-class quiz is this. Mass matrix of a body is a diagonal matrix. And then if the mass, it says the mass matrix of a body is a diagonal matrix if body reference coordinate system is located in the center of the mass. My first option, the body reference coordinate system is located out of the center of the mass, within the boundaries of the body. But within the boundaries of the body. Body has a beam-like shape. Body reference coordinate system is located outside of the body. And now we're going to take this off and we're going to jump to Socrates. We have here only 18 students. How come in the first question, 18 students? How come is that few students today? Is it still okay, obviously, was there a problem in first in-class quiz? You guys were able to enter an answer? Well, it appears to me that there's only 4 students that enter an answer. 4 only. 4. Maybe there is some delay in the system, because now it appears, okay, this is the in-class quiz that is on at the moment. Is not the one that I showed, but the previous, the one that was in a lab before the break. Okay, first question is on. Select the mass matrix as the system. All right, so that is related to this in-class quiz. This one. You guys entered the answer for this first question? You did. You did. All of you did. Okay, so let me just close the first question. I want to see how is, seems that some of are still thinking. Now there's, okay, let me wait. This is, again, the first question. First question is on. The one you have to select the mass matrix. You don't have, I think that you enter your answer then.
Yeah, because we entered.
Okay, so let me check how is success rate. I'm not sure if you, can you see the success rate through the YouTube? You can. Yeah, you can. Okay, I'm gonna close the first one. Okay, not 100%, but high, very high. 83%. 83%. Now I'm going to move on to next question, which is the one you can see right now in your Socrates. So I'm asking the mass matrix of the body is a diagonal matrix if body reference coordinate system is located in the center of the mass. Body reference coordinate system is located outer of the center of the mass, but within the boundaries of the body. Body has a beam-like shape. Body reference coordinate system is located outside of the body. Okay, and now it's going to happen. It will happen right here, right now. It will. We need this positive spirit here. Last time 83, which was exceptionally high. So we'll see how is okay. I'm going to leave you to enter the answer and then go back to this. And then I'm going to move on to equation of motion. I will get back to that in a second because there is something that is extremely heavy and hot and heavy. Heavy, not hot, only heavy. So this is related to equation of motion and how we can define the equation of motion using augmented formulation. But before entering to that, we have to look, not here, here. So how we can construct the components needed in the equation of motion. You know, this is the first thing that is important you to know. You know, what we do in the multi-body system dynamics is that we are summarizing different bodies. So we're always summing up. So it's a different concept comparing, say, finite element method. And the way we can sum up the system mass matrix, the one that is shown here, and the system generalized coordinates goes in such the way that if we have one body, this vector here consists of 3 components. If we have 2 bodies, then we're just adding another 3 components to this vector. So it will be a total of 6 components. So if we have 10 coordinates, we're going to have 10 bodies, then we have a 30 generalized coordinates. So we're always adding up. In the same way we can construct the mass matrix, you know, the quadratic velocity vector, and externally applied forces. We can all just keep on adding them together. And when we're adding them together, that's how it looks. And now I can see that there is a typing mistake. This is supposed to be, of course, 2. So we're going to use this diagonal representation. There is a first mass matrix. So this is a block diagonal representation of second mass matrix. So the mass matrix associated the first body, second body, so on and so on. And this is finally the last body of the system. Look at that. So they are not overlapping. Remember, in a finite element method, not all degrees of freedom are overlapping. So this is the way you're constructing the stiffness matrix in finite element method. So in finite element method, so typically the first element is here, the second element is here, and there's a certain part where there is an overlap. Here in a multi-body system dynamics, absolutely never ever make them overlapping. You're just using this block diagonal representation, and that's how you can construct the mass matrix. Similar way, you can construct the quadratic velocity vector. Oh God, this is supposed to be 2. This is supposed to be 2 here. So the first quadratic velocity vector associated the first body, second body, third body, and so on until the last body of the system. Externally applied forces. Oh God, this is supposed to be 2 here too. First, second body, third, all the way to NB body. That's how you just keep on adding the length of the vector. You keep on adding the dimensions of the mass matrix. That's how you can get the system representation of mass and forces. All right? That's how it goes. That too we're going to practice a little later. If not today, then going to be next Monday. And the same way we're going to do for constraint equations. And by the way, there was a question related to constraint equations from the email, like, is it making difference? What's the order of constraint equation? Order can be whatever you want. You just need to be consistent once you pick an order. So once you have an order, later you cannot change it. But the order can be whatever you want. So that's your choice. So anyway, so these are the constraint equations, independent constraint equations. You just keep on adding them and you make them as a vector. So finally, you're ready to express everything as a system matrices associated to mass, quadratic velocity, generalized coordinates, and external applied forces. Okay. Now, what comes next is maybe a little bit of confusion, but I felt that it's important to discuss here because I mentioned very early, I think it was 2 weeks back, that the concept of virtual work is very often misused. It's often misused. And it's often misused because people are expressing the virtual work done by inertia forces equal than the virtual work done by externally applied forces. This is basically the equation that says that the mass multiplied by acceleration equal than external applied forces. You just use this concept and then you say, okay, that's how it goes, and you can express everything with help of virtual displacement of generalized coordinates. And you say that this is equal to 0. And these are the inertia forces, externally applied forces, you make them equal to 0. And you can put them equal to 0 only if you don't have a constraints in your system, if the bodies are free to move however they want. If there is a constraints, then this equation, generally speaking, is not equal to 0. Because you can use the concept of virtual work in such a way that the virtual displacement is kinematically admissible, kinematically possible displacement. Where they are expressed here is that you just simply imposing the virtual displacement to all the generalized coordinates, no matter what the constraints. So you're violating against the constraints, and that's why you cannot set this to be equal to 0. I'm going to repeat this in the next week because I'm sure what I just mentioned makes no sense to you. It's just that, okay, oh my God, in another 15 minutes and then I'm off and I'm never coming back, that's for sure. But believe me, this makes sense, and this is important detail. Not detail, but the big picture in mechanics. Very important picture in mechanics. I'm not going to repeat this with an example next Monday. All right? But the concept of virtual work, very hard to get a grip. Like, okay, how it look, and how can I put this in equal, and what happens if there's a constraint? All that is a big mystery. But let's look at this in a little bit of, future. So now, this was about unconstrained system without constraints, without any joints in your system. Then you can express this to be equal to 0. But if there's a constraint, then you have to use a special tricks to force this to be equal to 0. 2 ways actually. You can use embedded technique where the constraints are added to equations, or you're using embedded technique when you substitute the constraint inside of the equation, or augmented formulation when you're adding your constraint, your original equation. Those are the 2 choices. And those are the conceptual 2 choices. And then you can force this to be equal to 0. General case, this is not equal to 0. Because you are introducing the virtual displacement here in such the way that you are violating against the constraint. That's what's going to happen. Okay? Let me repeat. Because you're violating against the constraint, this is why you cannot set this to be equal to 0. So the constraint is a problem here. Big problem. And now let me take a look at the in-class quiz. Would you like to see a happy face? Because, today, this is going to be a group hug. If it's going to be 100% success rate, we can all come here and hug. Correct? Okay, good news. I have some good news for you. So, no one is proposing that body has a beam-like shape. Good news, very good news. I'm extremely happy. Extremely happy. And no one is saying that the body reference coordinate system is located outside of the body. Good job. I'm proud of you. But remember, the diagonal representation only if the body reference coordinate system is in the center of the mass. So that's why the second option, B, is not correct. But look at this. The progress is outstanding. The number here is 93. High number. So we this close to 100%. This close. One of these days, it will happen. And what if it's going to happen? It's like winning in a lottery, I think. Is it? Yeah. Okay, we'll see. Okay, my next question is this. Equation here cannot set to be equal to 0 because, and there are 4 choices. Inertial forces are not accounted. Listen to me. I'm explaining something that is extremely theoretical, very complicated and painful. Yet, I'm asking a question related to that because I'm hoping you're listening to me. This is what I'm really hoping. Okay, inertial forces are not accounted. The externally applied forces are not accounted. Constraints are not accounted. No forces are accounted. Those are the 4 choices. Only one is correct. I'm again asking why this cannot be set to be equal to 0 in general case. Why? Only one is correct. Now, there is no way that there's going to be 100% success rate in this question. But if we're scoring more than 70, that's already a good number, I think. Okay, so you guys want to have a little bit of time to enter your answer because then we're going to move on to the world of Lagrange multipliers. And then we are ready to express the equation of motion. With this close to wrap up the whole concept of multi-body system dynamics. And again, remember those emotional moments when we were able to run the kinematic analysis. Many of you were crying. But believe me, that's nothing, absolutely nothing comparing when we are capable to run dynamic analysis. Then it's going to be, yelling, crying, yelling like people are, very emotional. It will happen. We're going to run this same system, but this time it's going to remember this one moving body, but dynamic analysis. Okay. So you're going back and forth in my recording? Okay. Go ahead and do it. Go ahead and do it. Okay. But I'm going to move on, and I will explain the next topic, and the next topic is augmented formulation. Now, I know that it's late. It's already almost 6 o'clock, and it's been a long day for you, and it's Monday, 6 o'clock. So it's like a combination that is not very good. Still, I'm going to explain to you something that is very important for us. I'm going to explain to you one way that we can set that equation to be equal to 0. Now that one way is based on Lagrange multipliers. And to make that happen, we need to leave the mechanical world and look at the mathematics. And when we're looking at the mathematical optimization called Constrain Optimization. So we wanted to optimize a function in a way that the constraint is fulfilled. There is a method that is based on Lagrange multipliers. So we know that when there is a function f that is in a path of x and y that is subjected to constraint that is t here, the one way we can actually find an extreme of the function such the way that we don't violate against the constraint, and this is just a pure math, is that we can take a look at the gradients of the function itself and then this constraint. And when the gradients are in the same location, like in this particular location, these are the when I collect 2-dimensional representation of hill. So this is my function f. So these are the hills. The highest point of the hill is probably somewhere here, and then my red curve here is a constraint. So I want to find where is the highest possible location of this hill, such the way that the constraint is fulfilled. And the way that I'm finding that is that I'm looking the gradients of the function itself and also the constraint. And obviously, let me take this off. Obviously, the extreme can be found when I'm in this particular location, because I cannot get any higher in my contours than this point when I'm fulfilling the constraint, when I'm in a red line of this picture. Okay, so now when I look at these gradients, the gradients are pointing these directions, different directions, and this picture, by the way, is directly copied from Wikipedia. This is my point. So it's a matter of gradients, but now the gradient's length could be different. They could be pointed out different direction. So I have to multiply one of these gradient by a number, and the number or the factor that I have to use to multiply that is going to call Lagrange multipliers. That's mathematical expression of all this. So I have my gradient of the original function, this one here. So the gradients are all over here, here, all over. But in one location they are equal, then the gradient and the constraint. But because of the length of these gradients could be different, using Lagrange multipliers to match them. Okay? So this is the point that I can find, but I need a little bit of extra condition. Extra condition is the fact that this point where this happens, when this mathematical condition happens, must be in this line. So I have to combine this mathematical expression to constraint equations. And the constraint equation can be expressed, this is how are the gradients. This is how I can calculate the gradients of the original function and my constraint. And this is my first condition, and the second condition is that constraint must be fulfilled. If these two equations are valid, then I can actually solve this optimization problem. I'm kind of feeling to penalize you and explain this whole thing again, but I'm not going to do it because I want to be your friend. Okay, let's not worry about too much about mathematical background. Let's look at, what is that we have? So we have a gradient of the original function, we have a gradient of the constraint, and then the constraint is multiplied by Lagrange multipliers, and then I have here original constraint. How this is related to us? Is there any relation to what we've been discussed? Okay, that's going to come very soon. Let's first practice this. I have function shown here. I have function q and the constraint t, and I wanted to find the extreme of the functions. That's the way that that constraint is fulfilled. And the variables in this case are y1 and y2, and I'm calculating the gradients. The first gradient, when I calculate the function itself, that's going to be y1 and y2, simple like this. And when I compute the gradients of the constraint, it's going to be 1 and minus 1. And now I'm ready to express this with help of Lagrange multipliers. So I'm putting this one, hold on here, this gradient equal then this gradient, such that this gradient is multiplied by Lagrange multiplier. That gives me two equations. The one final equation, that is a constraint equation itself, is this one here. This is my original constraint equation. This is where the two first constraints are, two first equations are coming from. So I have a total of 3 equations. Remember, this is very important observation. Originally I have 2 variables that are y1 and y2. Now I have 1 extra variable. Because of the 1 extra variable, I have 1 extra equation. And that extra variable is a Lagrange multiplier. Lagrange multiplier is a price you have to pay because of the constraint. For us, it will be related to constraint equations that are joints. And they mean the physical interpretation of Lagrange multipliers for us will be reaction forces due to the constraints, due to the joints. Okay, so I can see from your face that this, but remember, I promise, this will be a painful lecture today. So I kept my promise. Right. Okay, but this is the top of the hill. Now we're top of the mountains. This is it. Now we're slowly coming down. But it's not going to get any more difficult than this. So is everything, all this pain, all these, difficult topics is done. Now we start looking at like, okay, what is exactly we can do with this in practical problems and how this is related to multi-body dynamics. Let's look at that first. This is what I'm extending, the concept to n dimension. The first one was a simple system with the, one number of equation, but with n number of equation, that's how it reads. So this is not the scalar, but this is a vector. This is not the scalar, but this is a vector. And Lagrange multipliers too is a vector. And this is a vector of constraints, so that's what it is. Now, how this is related to us? This component here, where we have original function that is differentiated with respect to variables, that's our forces. It says mass multiplied by acceleration minus quadratic velocity vector minus external applied forces. That's what it is. What is this one here, where there is a constraint differentiated with respect to variables? Jacobian matrix. So it's Jacobian matrix that will be multiplied by vector of Lagrange multipliers. And now we can set this equation to be equal to 0 with help of Lagrange multipliers. So it's going to be this part of the equation that we can set to be equal to 0. We still need one more extra component, and one more extra component is constraints. This is our final destination, almost the final destination. So we have here differential equation that express how is the motion of the system, and then we have a constraint. And this set of equation is called set of differential algebraic equations, DAA. Set of differential algebraic equations. We could, in theory, take these equations and integrate them in a forward of time. But I want to do a final trick. I promise this is a final trick. So I want to convert this DAA, so a differential algebraic equation, to be ordinary differential equation. And I can do that with help of constraint equations. So it is going to be this guy here. Now how that's going to happen? It's going to happen in such a way that I will differentiate the constraint twice with respect to time, and I will call that as a QC. And now I can express this original set of differential algebraic equation as an ordinary differential equation shown in this slide. This is it. This is something called equation of motion for multi-body system. Come here and hawk. No? Okay. Okay, so let me explain what we have in this equation. Okay, we have here mass of the entire system. That consists of mass representation of each one of the bodies. In planar case, each one of the bodies consists of 3 by 3 mass matrix. And then we're using this block diagonal representation to construct the full mass matrix. Okay? Then I have here Jacobian matrix of the entire system. Okay? We are already familiar with that. Then I have here acceleration of all the tenorized coordinates. All the tenorized coordinates. So if I have, say, system, this system, which is a double pendulum, revolution here, another beam-like body here, revolution here. This system consists of 2 moving bodies, so it will be a total of 6 tenorized coordinates. Correct. That will be located here. Then I have here Lagrange multipliers. Number of Lagrange multipliers will be equal than the number of constraint equations, because they are representation of reaction forces due to the constraints. That's the price we have to pay because of the constraints, reaction forces. So we have here revolution 2 constraint equation, revolution 2 constraint equations. This vector of Lagrange multiplier will consist of 4 components, 4 items. There are reaction forces because of the revolute joints. Then I have here external applied forces, quadratic velocity vector, and the QC, which comes when I differentiated the constraints twice with respect to time. No need to cry today, because this is just the beginning. This is just the theoretical premises. What will happen next Monday is a lot of celebration. We're gonna drink coffee. We're gonna laugh a lot. We're gonna tell jokes about this equation and all that kind of stuff, and we're gonna run examples, because how it is at the moment makes no difference in your life. But I want to show you 6 steps how you can create this equation of motion for any planar mechanical system you have, and then you can solve those by using a simple MATLAB code. That's the whole idea. So then once you have that, then you can actually go to any of the local parks in the city and say, listen to me, I'm the guy that can create the equation of motion. Free drinks. Yeah, but I don't know if they're gonna give you free drinks, but you can make a good show out of that. And we'll see how it's going to be. Okay. Oh yeah, so it's already more than 6 o'clock. Okay, 6:02. So let's close for today. And again, I need to apologize that today was a lot of technical difficulties, like the last week, a week before that. And okay, hopefully next week is going to be something that no problem at all. Yes, sir. Oh yeah. So is there going to be 100% success rate here? Ready? Okay, very, very high, very, very high, 83. 83, but not 100%, but next week, I will, okay, next week, maybe I should already let you know what I'm going to ask. I don't remember what I'm going to ask. Okay? All right, thank you very much, and take it easy, and see you on Monday. Respect.